Distinguished leaders, ambassadors for peace, dear participants. My name is Jacques Marion. I'm the co-chairman of the Universal Peace Federation for Europe and the Middle East. And it's a pleasure to welcome you to this Think Tank 2022 Global Forum. Before we begin, let me make a practical announcement. This webinar will be in English, Japanese, and Russian. If you need translation, please click on the globe at the bottom right of your screen and choose the corresponding channel. English, Russian, and French are available. The chat icon is for remarks and information, and the bios of the panelists will be available there as well. For questions, please use the Q&A icon. Our staff will answer your questions, and the questions to the panelists will be answered during the Q&A session. The Think Tank 2022 Global Forum webinars, which we are holding during the next 3 days, are being held simultaneously throughout the world, in Asia, Africa, Europe and the Middle East, and North and South America. This constitutes the preliminary program of the World Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula, which will be held in Korea on February 11 to 13, and co-chaired by Prime Minister Hun Sen of Cambodia and former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. To begin this global forum, I will invite the chairman of UPF Europe and the Middle East, Dr. Katsumi Otsuka, to give his welcoming remarks. Dr. Otsuka is from Japan. He has served in many positions of responsibility around the world, including as president of the Family Federation for World Peace in Japan, Russia, and Africa. He has also led several organizations focusing on the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Dr. Otsuka, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Dear respected panelists, ambassadors for peace, and UPF friends. I'm very happy to greet you representing UPF Europe and the Middle East. I'd like to express first my sincere gratitude for your participation in this program, Think Tank 2022 Global Forum. In the last year, 2021, as you know well, we organized various webinars on the topic of peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, commemorating the 30th anniversary of the UPF Founders Meeting with the President of North Korea, Kim Il-sung. It is our greatest happiness that we could invite many world well-known political leaders, religious leaders, scholars, leaders from business and media fields to our program in the year 2021. As a result of the webinars, the Think Tank 2022 was created for realizing the peace in the Korean Peninsula and for realizing the world peace. This program you are joining now is the new start of the series of programs in the name of Think Tank 2022. As you know well, the origin of the UPF can be sought back in the last century. Humanity has experienced all kinds of tragic wars in the 20th century. The Korean War, which broke out in the 1950s, is described by many scholars as the Third World War, which resulted in the division of the family, of a tribe, nation of Korea. The world was an entire world was divided. It is not therefore too much to say that the division of Korea was not a simple division of one nation. Rather, it was a manifestation of the entire division of all humanity. Dr. Sam Myung-moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon, both were born in what is now North Korea. They experienced the Japanese 36 years rule, the Second World War, and the Korean War. The division of Korea has been blocking them to see their relatives in North Korea. Dr. Moon, when he was in 20s, was arrested by the North Korean government and was sentenced to 5 years of hard labor in the extermination camp. According to Dr. Moon, he witnessed many people died with hunger, sickness, and execution. In case of Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon, at the age of 6, she evacuated from north to south and experienced a life of refugee there. These experiences surely motivated them to work for the world peace and for the peaceful reunification of their nation by dialogue with mutual respect. Dr. and Mrs. Moon took a crucial step 30 years ago for the establishment of the peace on the Korean Peninsula. They visited North Korea, Pyongyang, North Korea in December 1991 and had a peace talk with the President Kim Il-sung, who once attempted to kill Dr. Moon. It was very unforgettable and very impressive to me that they embraced President Kim beyond their past terrible experiences. The agreement they signed began the North Korean fundamental foreign policy framework towards South Korea in 1990s. Dr. and Mrs. Moon played a crucial role in the citizen diplomacy between North and South. Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon has a strong hope to visit North Korea again. I'm strongly praying that her visit to North Korea will be realized someday soon in this year, 2022. I'm very happy to share with you about the upcoming exciting event in February in Korea. The UPF International is going to host the Summit Conference 2022 in the city of Seoul from February 10 to 13. Surprisingly, this summit conference is co-sponsored by the Cambodian government. The invitation letter signed by both Prime Minister, His Excellency Hun Sen, and the former Secretary General of the UN, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, was sent out to 157 nations around the world. I'm very excited about this event. Dear UPF friends, in today's world, many of the problems are intricately intertwined and cannot be solved by one nation alone. Dr. and Mrs. Moon, therefore, have presented the new ideologies of headwind thought. According to the founders' ideas, the key words of the UPF will be empathy, cooperation, dialogue, with the heart of living for the sake of others, true love. We are very fortunate to be able to keep climbing on with you towards the summit of the world peace, with the spirit of living for the sake of others. I have more to share with you, but let me close my greetings here, expressing my deep appreciation again to your participation in this forum, in this Think Tank 2022 Global Forum webinars hosted by UPF Europe and the Middle East. May you have a fruitful discussion in this program.
Thank you, Dr. Otsuka, for your informative message. Dear participants, we have a very stimulating program ahead in the next 3 days with 9 webinars featuring prominent speakers from each of UPF's association, beginning with parliamentarians, religious leaders, heads of state, scholars, women leaders, business leaders, media representatives, and artists. Since this first forum is organized jointly with UPF Japan, we are pleased to have a very broad audience today, ranging from Europe and the Middle East all the way to the Far East. So I want to send again our warmest greetings to all participants, and I hope you have a great experience in the coming days. Without further ado, I will pass it on to Peter Haider, the president of UPF Austria, who has been the co-organizer of this session. Peter, the floor is yours.
Distinguished panelists, excellencies, participants from all over the world, I send you greetings from Vienna. My name is Peter Haider. As Jacques Marion said, I'm the coordinator of the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, short IAPP, in Europe and Middle East. Since its inception, the Universal Peace Federation has worked closely with parliamentarians from around the world to build a world of lasting peace based on universal principles. The founders of the Universal Peace Federation, Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, launched the Global Parliamentarians for Peace initiative already in 2001. Inauguration events of IAPP were held worldwide then, starting from Seoul, Korea in 2016, where it was officially inaugurated in the Parliament, later in the Houses of Parliaments in Great Britain for Europe and the Middle East, and in all continents all over the world. We should especially be mindful that the Korean Peninsula remains divided. Even today, more than 70 years after the beginning of the Korean War, the citizens of the peninsula are still waiting for the moment to communicate or freely travel in their homeland. This is why we organize this conference series in the next few days. As we are organizing this conference together with UPF Japan, I hand now over to Mr. Yasushi Matsumoto, who is the coordinator of IAPP in Japan, to say a few words of their work there. Mr. Matsumoto, please.
Mr. Matsumoto, you're muted. Mr. Matsumoto, you are muted.
They say they are muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay now. Okay.
IAPP Japan is featured with IAPP Japan Forum, which means IAPP Japan Forum is officially registered in Japanese Diet as a parliamentary association. Based on UPF founders' vision of world peace, we hosted the first General Assembly on June 11th, 2021 last year, with 78 current Diet members. There are altogether 713 members in Japanese Diet. That's why 78 means a little bit more than 1/10. Honorable Harada, today the participant, has served as first president. Thank you, Honorable Harada. And then after the inauguration, we worked with US IAPP and two congressmen from US and two House of Representatives from Japan discussed on Taiwan emergency in July 2021. And then this year, we hope to the membership to become 100. And also, we hope to host 2+2 EU-Japan parliamentary exchange on the proper topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matsumoto, to give us a short introduction to your work in Japan. I want to introduce now to you the moderator of this conference. It will be Dr. Beatrice Bishop. She's a member of the managing board of the Foreign Affairs Association in Munich, Germany. She attended the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. Her areas of study were political sciences, constitutional law, and literature sciences, and she graduated as Doctor Rerum Politicus with economic and social history, which was an additional subject of her studies. Until 1996, she was a member of the managing board of the company of her family. Afterwards, she completed her education as a TV journalist at the Kirch Media Group. Since that time, she has been working as a TV journalist, political scientist, and also, and I should mention that her special studies, her PhD work was on on Korea, which is quite unusual for a political scientist of Europe. So she's very much into this topic. Dr. Bishop, the floor is yours.
Thank
Please.
you very much, Mr. Heider. Yes, I have to add, it's unusual, but my doctor father or my main professor was Professor Gottfried Karl Kindermann. He was the founder of the chair of international policy at the Munich University, Ludwig Maximilians University, and his special subject was Asia, and also, of course, the divided countries like that time China, Korea, and in this time it was also Germany, as we remember. So now we will start. Northeast Asia is a region characterized by the presence of three of the most dynamic world economies, China, Japan, and South Korea. It therefore constitutes a natural crossroads of cultures and traditions, which today is characterized by the extraordinary ability to technological innovation and global business. Even the most important tactical player in today's geopolitics, Russia, faces that area with the eastern offshoots. Growing military tensions around Taiwan, as well as economic and technological rivalry between China and the United States, threaten peace and stability in East Asia. The regional power balance shifts in Beijing's favor. So in the meantime, the Korean Peninsula remains a bone of contention among its powerful neighbors. The old system of bloc alliances persists in the multipolar world of the 21st century, and this is keeping Korea divided. So this is about, and now I may introduce our speaker of today, the first speaker. It is Honorable Yoshiaki Harada. He was born on the 1st October 1944. Honorable Harada is a Japanese politician of the Liberal Democratic Party, a former member of House of Representatives in the Diet, elected 8 times until 2021. He graduated University of Tokyo and entered Ministry of International Trade and Industry in 1970. He studied at Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Massachusetts, USA. In 1990, he was elected to House of Representatives for the first time. In 2005, he assumed the chairman of Lower House Foreign Affairs Committee. In Japanese government, he served as Parliamentary Vice Minister of Health and Welfare, State Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, and most recently, Minister of Environment from 2080 until 2019. The floor is yours, Honorable Harada.
Hello, thank you very much. And thank you, Honorable Dr. Bishop, Mrs. Bishop, for introducing me so clearly. Thank you very much. And hello to all the dignitary people from all over the world. My name is Harada, as was introduced. And yes, I'm very happy to be here and very happy to attend this panel discussions. First of all, I would say that we are in Japan. Of course, I'm not officially representing Japan, but still I am myself feeling like a representative of Japan. Well, speaking of the politics and economics, we are very much concerned about the world of situations right now. One, from the Japanese side, we are very concerned about the China's, I should say, invasion to our own territory, Senkaku Islands, which are supposedly from ancient years, the Japanese territory. But still, almost every day, China is rather invading or intruding to these areas. We are very afraid, and we try always with the defense force. We are getting them out, and also we are rather very afraid of the incident of the Taiwan incident that would probably would have take place in 3-4 years or so. So we were still thinking that this must not happen by any means. And also in speaking of the world affairs, we are also very afraid and concerned about the なんだったっけな、ヨーロッパのウクライナ problems, yes. And I hope things will be settled with the highly political talkings and also adjustment between Ukraine and Japan, Ukraine and the United States, and also Ukraine and Russia. But anyway, this must be finished in peaceful and more discussing way of things, and also, and this is a sort, in a sense, the Japanese are thinking about this will become a sort of a model style to the Taiwan-China problems. Anyway, things were settled as soon as possible, as soon as most peaceful and comfortable way of things. Anyway, but anyway, for the Japanese side, Japan's revision of the constitution is one of the most biggest political topics. The Japanese constitution, which we are now under, this constitution, which is still present with us, is rather out of date for the Japanese peoples. In a sense, the Article 9, which includes the situation of the defense army and defense forces, and Japan at the most defense power are not limited from the constitution, even though our defense force is still functioning very well. That's why this must be revised as soon as possible. This is one of the most political situations and issues for the nation. And speaking of the division of the Korean Peninsula, we are of course very much concerned, and just wanting the people of the Korean people to get together and become one nation again. But we have not very functioning and very artificial way of situations. We are just looking at and also hoping, and we will do as possible. But still, we don't have any very effective way of thinking and diplomatic things. But anyway, I hope the Korean people, north and south, they must get together as soon as possible. But we are very afraid at the same time. Almost every week, North Korea are launching the missiles, including the probably atomic launching and so on. So anyway, we just strongly urge President Kim Jong-un to stop and to become more internationalized, yes, to the outer world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Harada. Now I may add a question to you. Is China's interest in concluding a peace treaty on the Korean Peninsula connected with its interest to undermine the US military presence in South Korea? What does the Japanese government think of a multilateral approach on peace on the Korean Peninsula? How could it look like? Slowly, realistic, pragmatic? These are, in case there are two questions, but interesting one. I hope you could answer. Thank you.
これは非常に微妙な 問題ですからね、日本語で答えますけどね。まず
This is a very delicate question, so I would like to answer in Japanese. First, China and the Korean Peninsula. I do not think that they are necessarily moving towards a peaceful unification, but I think that it is very dangerous. At the present moment, Japan and Korea, unfortunately, they're in a very, well, not so good relationship. So together with Japan, the United States and Korea also, the relationship between these three countries is a very delicate situation right now. So regarding Korea and the Moon Jae-in regime, this tripod, this relationship of these three countries of Korea, Japan, and the United States, we are really working so that these three countries can join together. This is what we are asking President Moon Jae-in. And so I truly believe that we need to make the relationship of these three countries strong, and we are making efforts towards that. There are many issues, but I hope that once again, Japan and Korea can have a good relationship as it did before. This is what I truly wish for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Harada. The next speaker now will be Honorable Glyn Ford, a former UK member of the European Parliament, founder track to Asia, UK. Professor Glyn Ford is a British academic and Labour Party politician, elected as a MEP at the European Parliament from 1984 to 2009. He served on both the International Trade and Foreign Affairs Committee, particularly on dossiers related to Asia. This included being a rapporteur for the Free Trade Agreement with ASEAN, and for implementing the Scientific Partnership Agreement with the Republic of Korea. Honorable Ford, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I only have 7 minutes, so I will be telegraphic. What I'm going to say is summarized in a sense in my book, Talking to North Korea, Ending the Nuclear Standoff, which is available in English and in Korean. It's published by in Seoul in translation. I've had the opportunity to actually visit North Korea just short of 50 times over the last 25 years. My first visit was in 1997 and my last visit in 2018, just prior to the lockdown because of COVID. I have traveled to North Korea mainly as a part of a delegation from the European Parliament and as part of a political dialogue I have with the International Department of the Korean Workers' Party. Where are we in the sense of North Korea? What's happening? It seems to me that Kim Jong-un believes he faces two existential threats. One is external and one is internal. Whether it's true or not, he believes that he is threatened from a combination of the United States, Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo. But the problem is that even though they spend 25% of their budget on weaponry, on the military, 25% of something that's 50 times smaller than South Korea actually means that the South Koreans are outspending them by a factor of 6. If you look at the spending by the United States, Japan, and South Korea, the North Koreans are outspent by a factor of 50. They spend 2% of their budget compared to, if you want, the 3 people they see as threatening them. Therefore, the only option was to retreat into weapons of mass destruction because they've lost the conventional arms race. The result of which, of course, has been their nuclear weapons program and their missile program. They continue to test for a series of reasons. One is to maintain their capabilities. They use the same arguments as the United States uses about continuing joint military exercises in South Korea. We need to maintain capability. So they need to maintain capability as well. They're also trying to advance their weapons program. They're trying to do new things and develop new weapons, as is the United States and everybody else. They're not alone in weapons development. And thirdly, of course, they are also looking to make sales of their weapons technology. And on occasion, I don't think so at the moment for various reasons, but provocation. That's the, if you will, that's the external threat. Internally, the view is that the internal threat is from the people who matter in Pyongyang, who need to make sure that their standards of living continue to improve. The problem is there's a contradiction here, because of course the development of weapons of mass destruction means that the sanctions come. And so with the sanctions, it makes it very difficult to actually, if you want, improve the economy. And North Koreans say that the situation is such that they could grow their economy like the other Asian tigers, like the South Koreans, like Hong Kong, like Singapore, if only they were released from the pressure from outside. But of course, the weapons of mass destruction program means that can't happen. They've been very successful in controlling COVID. From a public health point of view, it seems to me that the claims they're making for very low, if not zero COVID cases, are probably correct. They closed down even before China did. The problem is this has been at enormous economic cost. And we've seen in the recent fourth plenum the speeches by Kim Jong-un that indicated that the priority is going to be on agriculture because there are clearly food shortages. This is not for the benefit of the farmers. This is for the benefit of the urban areas principally, because they're the people where it's falling short. So we have that program. There has been economic reform in North Korea compared to when I first went there 25 years ago. It's a different country. There's enormous inequalities of wealth that have emerged, and the North Koreans don't object to that in the sense of those people are under the umbrella. Economic development has allowed people to be under the umbrella of the military, the ministries, and the party in terms of engaging in economic activity. What Kim Jong-un has been clamping down on are what I call the Ronin capitalists, the masterless samurai, the people who've gone into the markets and are one in 100 that have actually started to make real money and are no longer, if you want, engaging in conspicuous consumption and the rest. The path to peace. I believe there is a path to peace, but it's going to be a long, step-by-step pathway that we're going to see over the coming, over a decade and more. If we learn from experience, the closest we've ever got to a path to peace was the agreed framework of the 1994 period. That saw step-by-step progress in terms at the time of actually freezing the nuclear program in exchange for investment in the North. At that particular time, it was going to be 2 light water reactors to provide energy to the North. The North critical shortages are energy and manpower. One of the reasons weapons of mass destruction actually help, it allows you to decant tens of thousands, if not of hundreds of thousands of people out of the military. You need a step-by-step program, and you need, if you want, investment, which is why both the United States and North Korea ultimately are looking for a multilateral solution. The United States, because they realize that if there's going to be substantial investment in North Korea, and the estimates, the amount that North Korea will be looking for is probably $15 to $20 billion, that cannot come from the United States. It's President Biden would be unwilling and unable to actually provide that sort of money because of Congress. So it means that the United States needs a donor program. From a North Korean perspective, they also need international guarantees. As they said to me, a letter from the current president of the United States saying there are no military threats from Washington is not enough. it will be something like the Iran deal, the JPCOA. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ford. This counts very good for my question. Some of the major players established new policy guidelines for the Indo-Pacific, as the US with Free and Open Indo-Pacific, FOEP, Germany with policy guidelines for Indo-Pacific called PGIP, and South Korea with the new Southern Policy NSP. Do you think that economy-based multilateralism through Asian EU, as ASEAN EU, could help easing the security-related tensions on the Korean Peninsula?
Well, the answer to that is yes. It's getting there that's the problem. One of the problems in the past has been the Chinese very much looked like the six-party model, but from a North Korean perspective, the view from Pyongyang was that Tokyo was sabotaging the six-party talks. That's no longer necessarily the case, because this was part of the Abe dynasty. We've now moved on to Prime Minister Kishida, who was probably the last senior Japanese politician to actually meet with senior North Koreans when he met with Kang Suk-ju in Berlin in 2014. So there's an opportunity there. And I think China will be very interested in reviving the six-party talks, and that's probably now more possible. Other people could be involved, whether it's ASEAN or South Asians. So I think there's a prospect there. The problem at the moment is getting the North Koreans and the Americans back at the same table.
Thank you very much. According to my list now, Dr. Evgeny Kim would be the next speaker. Is he there? Yes, he's there. Hello, Dr. Kim. I want to present him as Dr. Evgeny Kim. He was a deputy of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR, member of the Committee on International Affairs, deputy chairman of the Committee on State Building from 1989 to 1991, assistant to the deputy of the State Duma from 1994 to 2003. He serves in the Institute of the Far East, Russian Academy of Sciences since 2003. Dr. Kim can often be seen on various federal journals as an expert on the Korean Peninsula. Now the floor is yours, Dr. Kim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I had a text prepared, but I've heard the previous speakers, and I would like to actually say a few things out of the text. The question of peace in the Korean Peninsula depends on how we understand the situation in the right way. I would like to remind that even in the time of the Cold War, among the three countries, DPRK, Soviet Union and China, there was no any document of cooperation based on military cooperation with the cooperation with each other, especially in terms of weaponry or bringing any military base to the territories of North Korea, for example, or China. But on the territory of South Korea, up until now, there is a military base. What do you think? How people who live in North Korea look at this? During all these years, for many years, actually, on the territory of South Korea, Americans put their nuclear weaponry, some kind of weaponry there. How do you think North Koreans should look at this? Honorable Ford greatly said it's true that in this situation, North Koreans, they should develop, in some ways, they should develop their weapon. Another point, do we see this kind of division or political situation as it was 50 years ago? North Korea or Russia, we don't have any military agreement between China and North Korea. No agreement. But there is a USA, Japan military agreement. South Korea, America, there is a military agreement. But then, who is really trying to create the military base to fight other states? And now we heard that it would be very good if it is possible to develop more military cooperation between Japan, South Korea, and the USA. But don't you think how North Korea or other countries would look at this? What does it mean? Japanese military or any other presence in South Korea for other countries? How do other countries look at this? If we don't think about the security of all these countries like North Korea or other countries in the region, if we don't think about how do they feel about the security of their countries, then the peace is impossible in the peninsula or in the region. Take out all the foreign military troops from the region. And now we can see that one of the candidates for the presidents in South Korea, they say that they want to bring even more weapons to South Korea, and even they are ready to make a preemptive strikes. How do you think other countries should look at all this? That is why, as Honorable Ford said, North Korea really is worried about internal situation and external situation as well. Externally speaking, we see that it's true. America or Japan or even South Korea's expenses for the military is much more. Now we see the situation for 2 years. North Korea is basically closed all borders. Do you know that last year North Korea, even though there were a lot of problems with different types of weather there, but still they could harvest much more than it was during previous 10 years. And actually, this was in the circumstances where they couldn't communicate with other countries. So the system of survival exists in North Korea. That's why when we hear, when some people in South Korea or USA, they say that, okay, let's bring more military there so that we push them to bring North Korea to surrender. They are not right, because this would never happen. North Koreans, they do really, they are really able to overcome all kinds of sanctions and whatever. So they will live and they will survive. So now I will soon finish my talk. Yeah, when we, of course, with the pandemic and the COVID-19, we know that in North Korea there is almost no cases, of course, of COVID-19, but we know that because they really closed down from everything, from everybody. So this is one of the reasons why this COVID-19 is not so developing. But another issue is that they have their own production of different things, even medically speaking. but they cannot show it to anybody, to any other countries, because there are sanctions. Thank you very much. This is the end. This is all what I wanted to say for the moment.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Now I want to add my question to you. We were talking now about the military strength of the US and the Iraqi army on the floor of Iraqi. But what do you think of the impact of the Chinese military posture and modernizing and exercise on the East Asia and Korean Peninsula? What about the loss of the INF treaty as impact on the Korean Peninsula?
Но вы знаете, Китайская Народная Республика,
Well, you know,
наверное, помните о том времени,
China,
она вынуждена была, в силу того, что она была тогда слабой,
before when it was quite weak,
450-е предупреждение Соединенным Штатам Америки
they had to
ее воздушного пространства.
they had to say about like 450 times to USA that they should never fly over the country. But now they're quite more stronger and they can dictate different ways. But China is not part of INF treaty, in fact. Russia and China have a lot of course, dialogue. We do work with them and cooperate. China is trying to come to the same level with the weaponry that Russia or United States have, in fact. For example, now, actually, I don't also understand why USA is so starting to speak about some mystical threat of China to Taiwan. In the same way as it is now a lot of voices coming about how Russia is going to invade so-called Ukraine, and in fact now they don't even know how to get out from this situation, because this is all myth. There is no real substance for this. And China also, for them, there is no use to really attack Taiwan. They are developing their economic and political relationship, and through this, actually, they are more integrated into each other. We need to think more how much Japan, China, what happened during the World War II, actually, and also South Korea. How much do they really think and consider what happened during the World War II? What the Japanese did to Korea, or also Russians remember this very well. What happened really during that time? And up until the time when we get free from all these memories, from all these situations which happened, and that we don't accept or overcome all this past history in the region, then we will not be able to bring peace. China doesn't want to invade anybody, any other countries, because of this, the economic development of the country will be destroyed. They will stop. They have so much trade with other countries. The country which has a lot of trade that much as China has with other countries cannot allow itself to invade anybody.
So I'm sorry.
Of course, we do understand that countries which have a lot of debts, they want to try to find the way how to overcome all these debts and bring all these debts to other countries. But this is not the way to peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. And now I think we see a film of Honorable Nina Novakova. Is it true, Mr. Haider? Yeah. So Mrs. Novakova is member of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. She was member of the Parliament in 2013 to 2017, and she was a member of the Human Rights Committee, the Education Committee, and the Media Committee. In 2021, she was again elected as the member of the Czech Parliament. She graduated from the Charles University in Prague, where she studied education, Latin, and social sciences. For many years, she taught ethics. She is the founder and chairwoman of the Stara Boleslav City Association. She is married and has one son. Thank you very much, and hope we will now listen to Honorable Novakova.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm very honored to participate at your conference. At the same time, I am well aware, like all of you, that it is taking place at a time when the attacks of evil, whose only aim is to divide humanity by all possible means, are getting stronger and stronger. I'm from the Czech Republic, very far, more than 8,000 kilometers from Korea. But our countries are close to each other in our shared experience of having had our borders redrawn as a result of war. As a child, I heard from my family how they used to feel at home, not only in Czechia, but also in the large Central European monarchy, where people of 11 different nationalities and believers of different faiths, including Judaism and Islam, lived together in peace and harmony. This ended with the collapse of the monarchy at the end of the First World War, when the geopolitical map was redrawn and new small so-called independent states came into being. Within 20 years, within just one generation, however, many of them, including my own country, Czechoslovakia, succumbed to the Nazi totalitarian regime. And the end of the Second World War, the Allied powers decided to redraw Central Europe yet again. The main line was a division between the Soviet bloc and Western Europe. Only 3 years later, our country, a highly educated, industrially developed, pluralist democracy, ended up at the site where civil liberties quickly disappeared and a one-party system, the rule of the Communist Party, was embedded into the constitution. The fate of our nearest Western neighbor, so-called East Germany, was even worse. The Iron Curtain divided not only the nation, but also families for 40 long years. Let me share an interesting fact with you to illustrate how European countries are strongly aware of their national identities. When the communistic bloc collapsed and my country, the Czechoslovak Federal Republic, regained its freedom, the nation ethnically closest to us, the Slovak nation, decided to go its own separate way. That it was they decided to do, but despite our separation, we have remained the closest Central European partners. Our languages are very similar, and thousands of families, both of Czechia and Slovakia, are truly Czechoslovak. Now let's return to the situation in former East Germany. The state regime kept many families strictly divided. But thanks God, the continuity of human connection managed to bridge those 40 years of communistic rule. Even though this year Germany will have been reunified for 32 years, some studies still bring evidence of a remaining divide between the Western and the Eastern Germans. Korea, with its long history, spanning millennia, has not been divided by a line into eastern and western parts. That line on the 38th parallel north was not drawn by the Korean nation. It was not drawn by the forefathers of today's young Koreans in the north and in the south. The people of Korea did not deliberately split their heart and their mind. But on the 14th meridian here in my country and on the 126th meridian in Korea, the fate of millions of families was in the hand of superpowers. But there is a difference in that the division of Germany did not spark another war. Let me share two personal memories with you. I heard from my father how distressed my parents were by the events of the Korean War, especially my mother, who worried that the apocalypse of a world war could be repeated. That time had such a profound impact on my mother that much later, in the year 2016, at the age of 95, her eyes filled with tears when she saw pictures of Czech cars I had brought from my visit to the demilitarized zone on the 38th parallel. The passengers of those cars, citizens of our country, were helping the diplomatic talks about a truce. My mother said, "We were serving a good cause." I didn't have to hard to point out to her the obvious fact that this was not peace, that the war, a crime in the eyes of the United Nations and a major sin in the eyes of God, did not end. The Korean nation has been divided for almost 70 years, so the hope for people who used to know each other to be reunited is slowly fading. This, however, does not diminish, but rather adds urgency to the appeal to people of goodwill and peacemakers to strive even harder to finally bring about the reunification of Korea. At first, it was a geopolitical decision of superpowers. Now, there are certainly economic interests at play as well. Dividing people, setting them up against each other. No mother, no father would do that. I ask all people in authority to approach their negotiations and proposals with a parental mindset. War is a crime, war is a sin, and dividing nations and families is against humanity. We must dare to dream about new families in which one parent will come from the north and the other from the south. We must dare to dream about the return of the natural order of things of past centuries and millennia. Dear friends, as a member of the Czech Parliament, I joined the Interparliamentary Group of Friends of South Korea. From all my heart, I sincerely hope that one day this will be the group of friends of unified Korea. Let us not lose hope. After all, the lust for power is fueled by weakness, by the inferiority complex, and by being spiritually adrift without any anchor in the ideals that transcend us all. Let's appeal to politicians and to business people who have a strong influence on them. Let's pray for them. View the problems of world, of states, of countries as problems of people. Look, please, through the eyes of parents, as those eyes are full of hope, faith, and love. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. This was a very good appeal to the humanitarian approach to this conflict solution. What also the Women for World Peace Association, for instance, also connected with you, is following up. So therefore, it is a good final statement on this cause. And yeah, let's work together to build a better nation. But Mr. Haider now will continue to ask you some questions, I think, that he gets from the audience here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all these contributions. First, I want to ask the panelists if they want to comment on the statements made by the other speakers. Mr. Ford, you want to say something in relation to the statements made by your colleagues?
Well, I tended to agree with almost everything that was said by the other speakers. The only thing I would add, I was interested in the Honourable Arada's comments. I had the privilege many years ago to go to Okinawa and visit Yonaguni, which is the most remote Okinawan island, and was very impressed that I could see Taiwan on the horizon. And I don't think that many people actually appreciate that when Tokyo talks about the Taiwan problem, it's very local in the sense that most people think that Tokyo is a long way from Taipei. It's not, in fact, the case. From Yonaguni, Taiwan is looming on the horizon. So it's not an international problem. It's more of a domestic problem.
Thank you. Honorable Harada, would you like to say something towards the other panelists?
ですね、話しますけども、今お話になりましたようにね、私ども沖縄
As he spoke right now, actually Okinawa for a very long time now, after many talks being held, we were able to receive Okinawa back from the United States in a very peaceful state for about 50 years ago. And I think that I would like to say the same thing about the Northern Territory towards Russia and the Senkaku Islands towards China. Both of these territories are historically, undoubtedly Japanese territory. So I would like to very hope that both countries can return these territories to Japan peacefully. And also, since this is a very good chance, I would like to also add that right now, China is holding the Beijing Winter Olympics. It's going to start soon. And regarding this, countries all over the world, holding the Olympics actually is very good, but China has many problems concerning human rights, the Uyghur problem and the Tibet. I really hope that this can be cleared out on this occasion as well. All the people, so many people of this world are really concerned and worried about human rights, but China's communism is, they say that they are not violating human rights. It's a very domestic problem, so that other countries should not interfere with it, right? They are not trying to solve the problem. This is actually a very serious problem. So the people of the world need to understand this clearly. And the Japanese government, the Japanese parliament wants to make this very clear as well, that China must stop this human rights invasion. This is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kim, you want to comment on the other panelists?
Да, спасибо большое. Я хотел бы
Thank you so much. I would like to comment on the certain points. In 1956, Japan joined United Nations. It was with agreement of Soviet Union. Japan signed the UN Charter, and it says that a decision made by the Allied forces after the Second World War is accepted by all countries that enter or join United Nations. But now, when you talk about North territories, so-called North territories, you violate agreement that was signed by Japan in 1956 when Japan joined United Nations. I was very much interested by the Honorable Novakova. Let's remind ourselves who suggested to divide Korea into North and South. It was not proposed by Soviet Union, it was proposed by Gary Truman, the President of the United States. Do you remember that fact? The initiative came from not from the USSR, but from the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I have now a few questions from the audience. The first one directed to Honorable Harada. Korea and Japan would be natural allies, everyone thinks, looking at especially their political alliance. But why is it so difficult for Korea and Japan to put their past behind? This is a question from Dr. Michael Balcom from Britain.
Regarding this, I am a professional in this field. So right now, from Japan to Korea, what Japan would like to say to Korea is, number one, there is the Takeshima Island. And this also, as I said, is traditionally Japan's island. And one more, what we remember from the past war is that Korea, when the Japanese military, Korea is saying that Japan gathered comfort women from Korea, but this is actually not true. It is a misunderstanding of Korea, and this is what Japan would like to say to the world so they can understand well. Please, we are trying to say that there is misunderstanding. So actually, for a very long time, Japan and Korea were in a very good relationship. So from now on, there will be the presidential election and many things are coming up. So we hope that we can really talk things out well and make the relationship better again. Because we are neighboring countries compared to other countries, there might be many things that other countries might not understand, but these are things that we really would like to solve between Korea and Japan.
Thank you. A question to Honorable Clint Ford. A step-by-step approach, as you advocated, would be probably the best, especially to establish more mutual confidence. And six-party talks collapsed because of a lack of it. So how do you think this mutual confidence could be increased or encouraged or developed? This is a question from Mark Vogeler.
Well, Mark is entirely right that one of the biggest problems is less the technicalities and more, if you want, attitudes. And unfortunately, both Pyongyang and Washington have good reason not to trust the other. So we're starting from a very low base, which is why it's absolutely essential that Washington, because I think North Korea does realize it, actually accepts that resolving the Korean Peninsula question will take a long time. I think it was a mistake in Hanoi not to accept. I'm not arguing you should accept exactly what the North Koreans wanted, but to accept the notion that this was going to be a step-by-step process, because in the end, President Trump, if you want, tried to resolve it all in one go. That is not going to happen, because for good reasons, as I said, neither side trusts the other. And so you're going to have to build that. And so the first recognition is longevity.
Okay, thank you very much. There is another question relating maybe to Russia. How are Russia, Vietnam, and ASEAN countries involved in this peace process to find this peaceful solution for the Korean Peninsula? We can see, like, the American President Trump and Chairman Kim met in Asia, in Hanoi and in Singapore. So these are countries somehow also very involved, or they wanted to meet there. So what do you think? How can all these countries from Asia contribute to a peaceful solution outside of US and China? It's a question from Dr. Halus Kova, directed to Dr. Kim.
Знаете, я думаю,
I think
во всяком случае эти страны не будут
in any case,
позицию Соединенных Штатов Америки.
these countries are important because they will not support only the United States position. These countries will support mutual and equal conditions for all countries in the region. And if these guarantees will be granted, that all countries in the region will be concerned and consulted, then it will be the first step towards the peace in this region. North Korea are now making tests nuclear test, but it's not true. For the last 4 years, it haven't been done. Russia and China suggested, because of the pandemic and because that North Korea followed the agreement, they haven't conducted any testing for 4 years. No nuclear testing, no the missile testing. So Russia and China suggested, based on these points, to lessen the sanctions, not take them off, but at least lessen the sanction according to humanitarian issues. So I think it would be good if all countries would listen to the suggestion. But United States and United Kingdom banned that suggestion in Security Council of United Nations. So I think the Vietnam position and Russian position is that we are ready to support and to contribute. We are ready to facilitate the cooperation between two Koreas, and we are ready to facilitate negotiation between United States and North Korea, but we will not play on American side in that issue, in that particular issue. Of course, there are a lot of interest of Russia, China, North Korea, and other countries involved. But I want to emphasize one more time that on North Korean land, there is no foreign military presence. There are no foreign military testing on basis. But on the contrary, South Korea, together with the United States, they conduct military maneuvers every year. In 2018, according to the decision of South Korean President Moon Jae-in, these maneuvers were reduced, but later they restarted again. This kind of joint military maneuvers of South Korea and United States, they are very much connected with the realization of Plan 5015, so-called plan. This plan allows military forces of South Korea and United States be drawn into the North Korean land. And America and South Korea, they was quite openly talking that actually their maneuvers is a preparation for that step, to be able to move their troops into the North Korean land. If you cancel this kind of maneuvers and this kind of steps and policies, then you will gain more trust from North Korea. Russia is very much interested in the Korean Peninsula issue, and we try to have negotiations with North Korea, and we try to negotiate these issues with United States. But I want to emphasize we will not play only on American side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I have another question for Honorable Harada. Japan and Korea are economically very much connected to China by now. Like there's a strong dependence, or at least interdependence. But on the other side, politically and ideologically, they are very much connected to the United States. So how can you manage this conflict or this challenge?
First of all, economically, Japan and China, they are in a very deep relationship. So Japan and China, in the people's level, there are no problems, but at the same time, politically, just as you mentioned, there are territorial problems like Senkaku Islands and also the Taiwan problem. Regarding these problems, Japan politically is very worried about these points. And also, Japan and the United States, they also have a very deep relationship. America, representing the whole world, is trying to deal with China's homogenic expansion, right? Everybody is kind of expecting America to do that. And Japan is also working in that direction. So in any way, in that process, Korea, we are hoping that Korea will also move in that direction. But recently, Korea is not fully aligned with the Japan United States line. And one more, Korea is also economically and politically being suppressed by China. I think we are worried about this point. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I have one question, maybe for Honorable Greenford. How can US and DPRK come back to the negotiating tables? What factors could play a role? Because it looks like now there is a standstill.
There absolutely is a standstill at the moment. My understanding is that the North Koreans are, if you want, not responding to rather feeble attempts from Washington to re-engage. The North Koreans obviously were very bruised by the Hanoi experience. And if we look at what happened with in North Korea, all of the pro-engagement figures in the North Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs and in the International Department of the party got replaced. So you've got a new group of hardliners in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the International Department of the party and in the United Front Department. That means that, in a sense, the US is the much stronger power in this relationship, needs to, if you want, make some, I'm not talking about giving in, to make some minor concessions. It's the US that's got to be the one that's offering. All the evidence suggests that the Biden administration, for some good reasons, because there are other problems. It sees the whole issue around Afghanistan, the issues around the Ukraine and Taiwan, whatever the realities, are consuming enormous amounts of time. And of course, President Biden also has the problems of domestic politics. So we're slipping in dangerously back to what was called strategic patience by the Obama administration, but which I referred to as malign neglect. And so we're back to that. Anyone who thinks that after what the North Koreans have done to themselves in terms of trying to prevent COVID, who thinks that yet more sanctions are going to force them to the negotiating table, I think is sadly deluded.
Thank you. I have one more question from the Russian Far East, from Mr. Khabarovsk. How do you think, how beneficial is the unstable situation on the Korean Peninsula for the United States to deploy its troops in the territories of South Korea and Japan, thereby influencing the region? And also, of course, how important is this division for China? Maybe Dr. Kim, you could say something about this, or?
Так, благодарю вас. Я хотел бы
Thank you so much. I very much support Honorable Greenford position that United States should make certain steps in order to renew negotiation with North Korea. Because just to say we are ready to negotiate and to meet, it doesn't do anything. we should have a topic to discuss. It should be well prepared, and certain steps should be made in that direction. About the question about China and United States, how much they are interested in a division on Korean Peninsula. For the United States, I think to a certain extent it's useful because it's justified military deployment on Korean Peninsula. And of course, it also should remind you again the numbers that was said by Mr. Ford about the military expenses of North Korea and United States, and it's four times fold. So, according to these numbers, we are hardly to believe that North Korea will attack United States and will use nuclear weapon against United States. They won't do it because by doing this, they will destroy their own people, their own country. So I may say that to a certain extent, United States may benefit from the division on Korean Peninsula. And also you should take into account that South Korea agreed to increase expenses on American military bases in South Korea. And I think that if American forces would be withdrawn from Korean Peninsula, it would do good. What about China? China don't need division, doesn't need division, but if the unification of Korean Peninsula will go according to the American scenario, or according to the South Korean presidents, because their idea is to take North Korean. And it means that if will be no North Korea, but will be big, huge South Korea, then United States troops and South Korean troops will be on the border with China. And China doesn't favor this. China doesn't want American troops near their borders. So, of course, China's desire is unification of Korea, and also that Koreans would find their own way to for unification. It's in Kim Dae-jun, the president of South Korea, already signed with North Korean politics agreement that the issue of unification is an issue purely inside of and between Koreans. If somebody from outside of Korean Peninsula tries to improve the situation in the Korean Peninsula, it will goes from bad to worse. For example, South Korea in 2018 wanted to negotiate with North Korea issue of highways, and North Koreans agreed that South Korean engineers would come to North Korea and to do the monitoring and checking, to check the highways and roads. But in order to do that, South Korean engineers would need the equipment to be brought into North Korea. But the UN troops, which are guarding the border, banned South Korean bringing in equipment into North Korea. That actually there is no such troops in United Nations that will guard this 38th parallel. But these troops, which on the border, they're dictating their conditions. And actually, in a certain point, they're hindering the process of unification and cooperation between North and South Korea. I think it's very important for South Korea to do something independently on their own peninsula. And also agreement between North and South Korea with the President No was signed, and they agreed on huge project, economical projects, price billions of dollars. But it was buried because of United States demands. So I think division is mostly desired by the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we are at the end of the time for our discussion. I want to thank once more our distinguished panelists, Honorable Yoshiaki Harada, Honorable Glyn Ford, and Dr. Evgeny Kim. It was really interesting to hear the different viewpoints, also from different sides of the political spheres. And I realized maybe the most important sentence which I keep is mutual confidence. We have to establish much more belief in each other, and this means there must be probably much more talk between the different political sides. It is my final mission to speak about our next conference, which will start at 1 o'clock in 1.5 hours. It will be organized by the Inter-Religious Federation. You can see here the pamphlet, Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, and the topic will be, can peace be achieved by human means alone? Ending a 70 years of painful decision on the Korean Peninsula. You see the speakers below, and I want to invite you and to also join us for this session, and also for the sessions which come later today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. This ends our first session. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank to all the participants from all around the world, Russia, from Japan, and of course Europe and the Middle East. And I wish you a good lunch, or wherever you are, maybe a good dinner. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye. Wow.